6:57 local time. Day 27 in the Strait of Hormuz, and nothing has changed. Carrier strike groups are still holding position. Hundreds of Tomahawk missiles sit armed and ready. A level of naval firepower this region hasn't witnessed in decades is now fully deployed, and yet the strait remains shut. Diplomacy already failed once. Donald Trump extended the deadline, and Tehran called it weakness. The mines are still there. Fast attack boats still lurk in forward positions. Global shipping is frozen. Oil prices remain above $100 a barrel. The US Navy has done everything a Navy can do, and still, the choke point of global energy stays sealed, which forces Washington into a conversation it has avoided from day one, not about carriers, not about missiles, but about Fort Bragg, because the real solution to Hormuz isn't floating in the Gulf, it's waiting on land. To understand why, you need to look beyond the surface. Iran's navy isn't what's keeping the strait closed, because in open water, it wouldn't last. The US fleet dominates in tonnage, firepower, electronic warfare, and endurance. But this isn't a traditional naval fight. Iran's real power comes from land. Along nearly 100 miles of southern coastline lies a deeply layered anti-access network, mobile anti-ship cruise missiles, radar systems feeding real-time targeting data, and coordinated fastboat swarms operating inside the strait. Underneath it all, a web of hardened tunnels carved into mountain ranges allows Iran to move weapons and crews completely hidden from satellites and air patrols. Every time US aircraft strike, they degrade the system, but only temporarily. Within hours, new launchers emerge, radars reactivate, and the threat resets. 27 days of this cycle, and the strait is still closed. What makes this situation even more complex is geography itself. The Strait of Hormuz at its narrowest point is only about 21 miles wide, with designated shipping lanes just a few miles across in each direction. That means every tanker, every cargo vessel is forced into predictable paths, perfectly exposed to missile fire, mines, and swarm attacks. Iran doesn't need total control. It just needs to make the risk high enough that no commercial captain is willing to sail through. And that's exactly what has happened. Insurance premiums have skyrocketed. Shipping companies have pulled back. Even without firing a shot every hour, the threat alone is enough to shut down nearly 20% of the world's oil flow. This is why time is not neutral in this crisis. Every single day the strait remains closed, global markets feel it, supply chains tighten, and pressure builds not just on Washington, but on every economy connected to energy. And that raises the stakes beyond military strategy, because this is no longer just about reopening a waterway. It's about who controls the pressure point of the global economy, and how long the world is willing to wait before that pressure forces a far more decisive response. Air power has limits. It can destroy fixed targets. It can crater launch sites. It can eliminate boats when they expose themselves. And it has done all of that with precision, but it cannot hold ground. It cannot enter tunnels. It cannot stop Iran from simply rebuilding the threat the moment planes turn back toward their carriers. This is why the cycle continues. And this is why the solution isn't more airstrikes, it's boots on the ground. The United States already has the exact force built for this mission, and it's not deployed yet. It's sitting at Fort Bragg, home of the 82nd Airborne Division, 18,000 paratroopers trained for rapid deployment anywhere on Earth within 18 hours. No heavy armor. No long logistics chain, just speed, precision, and the ability to fight the moment they land. Before we go further, if you respect the men and women who stand ready to deploy anywhere in the world at a moment's notice, take 1 second to hit like and subscribe. It's a small action for you, but it helps keep these stories alive and reaching more people who need to understand what's really at stake. The 82nd specializes in forcible entry, dropping directly into hostile, defended zones and securing them before the enemy can react. Apply that to Hormuz, and everything changes. There are 3 critical objectives. First, the islands, Abu Musa, Greater Tum, and Lesser Tum. Small, heavily fortified, and strategically placed inside the strait. A simultaneous airborne assault, backed by naval fire and air superiority, could seize all 3 before Iran can reinforce. Control the islands, and you cut off forward radar targeting and fastboat staging areas. Second, the coastline. Multiple airborne insertions across that 100-mile stretch would overwhelm a defense system designed to face threats from the sea, not from above and behind. Tunnels that protect against bombs don't protect against soldiers entering from the ground. And hardened positions don't survive once infantry is standing directly on top of them. If you're following this and want more breakdowns like this, drop "Proud of the USA" in the comments right now it helps push this content further. The third objective is the most decisive, Kharg Island. Located in the northern Gulf, it handles around 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. That's the financial backbone of everything: missiles, boats, tunnels, operations. Destroying it removes revenue, but capturing it intact changes the entire equation. Secure the infrastructure, control the exports, and suddenly, the leverage shifts completely. Iran would face a choice: reopen the strait on US terms or lose the economic lifeline sustaining its entire strategy. That's pressure airstrikes can't replicate. That's leverage that doesn't expire with deadlines. There's another layer to this that makes the situation even more dangerous: miscalculation. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a regional choke point, it's a global pressure valve. Any sudden escalation here doesn't stay contained. One wrong move, one misidentified aircraft, one missile fired too early, one aggressive maneuver by a fast attack boat, and this situation could spiral far beyond a controlled operation. US forces are operating in close proximity, not just to Iranian units, but to international shipping lanes, allied naval vessels, and surveillance assets from multiple countries watching every move in real time. The margin for error is almost zero, and that's what makes a ground operation both risky and potentially decisive. Because while it raises the stakes immediately, it also shortens the timeline. Instead of a slow, grinding cycle of strike and rebuild, it forces a rapid shift, one that either breaks Iran's ability to maintain pressure or triggers a much larger confrontation. That's the gamble. Not just military success, but controlling how far the conflict spreads once that first boot hits the ground. So why hasn't it happened? 3 reasons. First, politics. Deploying ground forces transforms the conflict from naval pressure to something that looks like invasion. That shift carries global consequences. Second, doctrine. You don't send light infantry into active defenses until they've been degraded enough to survive, and those 27 days of strikes are part of that preparation. Third, the diplomatic window. The moment Boeing sees 17 Globemaster III aircraft begin loading at Pope Army Airfield, the world notices. Iran notices. Russia and China notice. And diplomacy effectively ends. But that window is closing fast. The extended deadline is nearly over, and if nothing changes, the cost of waiting may exceed the cost of acting. From Fort Bragg to the Gulf, roughly 7,000 miles. With aerial refueling, that's about 14 hours of flight time. From order to boots on the ground, 18 hours. That's the capability sitting unused while the strait remains closed. Iran has already calculated that naval power alone won't break its defense, and so far, it's been right. What it hasn't had to calculate yet is what happens when 18,000 paratroopers arrive simultaneously across multiple critical targets it cannot afford to lose. The Navy brought overwhelming firepower. Air power delivered precision strikes. Submarines created invisible pressure. But Hormuz is still closed because this was never purely a naval problem. It was always a land problem. And that means the solution isn't at sea, it's on the ground. Now I want to hear from you if you were in that decision room in Washington, knowing that 27 days of naval and air power haven't worked. Would you authorize 18,000 paratroopers to deploy and risk escalating this into a full-scale ground conflict to reopen one of the world's most critical choke points? Or would you hold back, continue pressure, and risk global economic consequences getting even worse? What would you do, and why? If you found this breakdown powerful, make sure to like and subscribe, because these aren't just stories, they're the decisions that shape the world we live in. Stay informed, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.